Mother-in-law and daughter-in-law finally getting along. What does that look like? Is that even possible? This is a very common relationship in marriage when a woman marries into a family, a young woman, and across all cultures. This could be quite a challenge to have a positive, a healthy relationship. And this video is going to actually show you what are the challenges in becoming a daughter-in-law, a mother-in-law, understanding what the challenges are, being aware of what a wise daughter-in-law and wise mother-in-law looks like, what actions can they take, and how can they be wise through their new role. How could they act on their new role through wisdom, through understanding, through patience. We're going to actually look into the challenges and learn practical tips on how to be a good mother-in-law, how to be a good daughter-in-law, and this applies to all cultures. So we must understand that being a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law is a relationship that we marry into, right? When a woman, young woman marries her husband, right? We marry our husbands. What happens is we're marinating in that idea of getting married. Maybe we've been dating for months, maybe for years, but we've been thinking about being together, building a home, building a new life. And then the wedding day comes and all of a sudden we are thrown into a relationship of having a mother-in-law, of being that daughter-in-law, and it's a new experience. It's a phase in life we are not used to. We're just thrown into and expected to make it work. And this could be quite challenging for both the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law. In this video, I hope to just raise awareness of the fact that it is challenging to adjust to this new phase in life. I want both the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law to see this video and know that it's hard for both of you, and it's hard for both of you to adjust and to kind of understand each other from a different perspective, as well as accept one another and strive to build a positive, strong relationship and connection. Hopefully that is the goal. Okay, so we know that when we marry into a family, the family comes along. It's like part of the package. We marry into the family. I'm a daughter-in-law. I'm not a mother-in-law yet. So when I say we, that's what I mean. So we're the in-laws are part of the package, and whether we like it or not, we are related. We are related to the family. The mother-in-law doesn't necessarily choose the daughter-in-law, like in many cultures, including Jewish cultures. You know, there's some research done about the daughter-in-law, what kind of family she comes from, but more or less, the mother-in-law does not make the final decision about who he marries, right? He chooses to marry the girl. She comes along with the package. And the mother-in-law doesn't choose the daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law doesn't choose the mother-in-law. Many times, you know, you meet the mother-in-law when you're ready to be engaged, right? Maybe they live overseas. So it's not always the case that you meet the parents and you know what they're all about when you start dating, right? You don't know what you're getting yourself into many times. I just want to make a little disclaimer that this video is not for daughters-in-law to forward to their mothers-in-law and tell them this is how you're supposed to be, and for daughters-in-law not to so mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law do not send the video to each other saying this is how you're supposed to be. This is how you're supposed to be in your role as a daughter-in-law and as a mother-in-law. So please, 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 this video is only for you as a mother-in-law or you as a daughter-in-law to become better at your role, to become aware of the role of the other person. Just like in marriage, we're not supposed to send, you know, videos to our husbands. This is how to be a great husband. We hope he learns on his own. We give him, you know, suggestions in a nice way, but all in all, we're not here to change the other person in marriage, and especially when we're in a relationship of a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law. So please don't send it to each other. It's not the goal. We're not here to change anyone, but it's for us, whatever role we're in, to become better at our role in life. Okay. So, as a new bride, we've said that the new bride is actually prepared for this role of being a wife, but not prepared to be a daughter-in-law, and she's kind of thrown into this position. She's expected to make it work, and all of a sudden, the daughter-in-law and the mother-in-law have been kind of thrown to accept this new role, right? So the goal of hopefully the information I'm about to share with you is for us to be more cognizant, aware of our new roles as wives and mothers-in-laws, to become more understanding, flexible, and embrace a willingness to patiently adjust and accept these two members of the family, hopefully with understanding and patience and positive relationships. And I know it's not easy. It's not easy. That's why we're going to hopefully learn about it and talk about it. And of course, with all the information that you know, this is a lifetime of work and constant nurturing of that relationship. Okay, so what are the challenges in this relationship? So for a mother, she raises a son. She gives her heart and soul to the son. She raises him, and all of a sudden, he's gone from the house. She cares about his well-being so much and has invested so much of her own life into him, and now she must adjust to a new reality. She may feel substituted in some ways by her new daughter-in-law because she no longer needs to cater her schedule to her sons, right? For example, she's not feeding him dinner, lunch, and breakfast, not in that order, but she's not constantly calling him for his well-being. So that's the challenge for the mother-in-law. And for the girl, she has dated probably so many candidates, and finally she found the man of her dreams, and she's excited to begin her new phase in life as a young bride and embark on this new journey of building a home with her husband. She may see her new mother-in-law as intrusive, nosy, and a little obnoxious. Why? She asks, when is he coming home? Asking what he ate, what he did, where he was, and asking little details about his life. And a new daughter-in-law is like, why are you asking him all this? Just get out of his life. So we're going to understand each other better. Where are all these situations are coming from and mindsets? So now we're going to first understand the mother-in-law, okay? The mother-in-law raises her son. She feeds him, she bathes him, she clothes him, she teaches him and guides him. She cares for her son with endless devotion. And those of us young moms who are raising these sons ourselves right now, we have an understanding of it a little bit better when we're actually going through it. But once we get older and our sons are ready to get married, we kind of forget of all our efforts. We remember bits and pieces, but the details, every night you were up, all the phone calls you made to the school to make sure he gets in, taking care of him when he's sick, all those details, sleepless nights, worries, and all the care you invested, you really forget the details. But right now we can truly understand a little bit better. So before she knows it, the mother-in-law sees her precious son grow up. His mother prays with all her heart that he finds his destined one, the right one, and he marries his true intended. A girl is finally found for him, and she appears to be a good match, and the wedding finally takes place with great joy. From that day on, the mother is pushed out of the picture and sometimes even erased, and along comes another woman, younger and completely inexperienced, and she takes her place. It is only natural for the mother-in-law to say, how can this young, inexperienced girl possibly take care of my precious son as well as I can? Right? This is what the mother-in-law may say. So we're going to go through them, but Rabbi Zamir Cohen says one of the mistakes parents make, mother-in-law, father-in-law make, according to Rabbi Zamir Cohen, is visiting their son and daughter-in-law as often as they can without an appointment, just because they feel like they're close enough and they're related and they have a right. So it is very healthy and a tip by Rabbi Zamir Cohen, and recommended to limit the visits, to announce the visits, right? You make a call, you tell your son, is it a good time to visit? Maybe it's not a good time to visit. You make an appointment. It does not mean you're neglecting them, right? This is hard for parents to internalize because they may feel offended by all this. But smart parents need to understand that in our generation, we live in a time where we don't live with our in-laws, and rabbis teach that the first year of marriage, a young couple actually needs to move away from all the relatives to build a new life, because now they're getting to know each other, especially in the first year. But after the first year, they still have to maintain a positive, healthy balance, and this may be hard to do. But as long as the parents understand this and we are adjusting to this new relationship, we could make it work. If the relationship is truly intrusive, we can speak to the rabbi, your own family rabbi, and have him help. And of course, it's the son who needs to talk to his parents and not the daughter-in-law, because in their eyes, she's someone new in the family. Even though she's married for 20, 30 years, she's someone who came into the family later, right? Even though she's probably loved. We have to understand that criticism always hurts, and the person who is related to them, their son, should be the one making the gentle suggestions in the marriage. Okay, if there need be. Tip number 2 by Rabbi Zamir Cohen to the parents, to the mother-in-law, the father-in-law, is to refrain from making any forms of criticism towards the daughter-in-law. Do not criticize the daughter-in-law. Why? The daughter-in-law knows that she married into the family and always wants to make a good impression on her in-laws. She doesn't want to be criticized by her in-laws. She doesn't want her in-laws to think any less of her, low feelings about her. So the parents need to be careful how they give advice and suggestions, not to imply criticism to the daughter-in-law. But we know this is a big challenge for people, for anybody, especially older people, especially people who are in-laws. They may not watch what they say, but if we're aware of what we're doing a little bit more, we'll understand why we don't want to hear that criticism, even though you may feel very close to the daughter-in-law. We need to understand that the mother-in-law only wants best for her son. She only wants best. So her actions may seem too intrusive, too caring, and oftentimes only because she needs time to adjust to this new reality and change in her life. So we have to understand the in-laws. They need time to adjust. It's not automatic. Once you get married, now I have to be the best mother-in-law. No, we need to give each other time to adjust to this new role that we've never been trained in, and we just have to make work, right? So I'll tell you personally, when I had to adjust to a new role, to a new principal in my school, it was definitely challenging, only because there were so many changes, a lot of great changes, but it was all new to me, and I had to adjust. And at one point, I felt like I was drowning until I was given time to adjust, and then, thank God, I was flourishing. So sometimes we may feel like, how can I do this? It's a new phase in my life. Just remember, given time, sometimes we hear of the saying, time heals. When the healing is actually, can also be the change we experience to embrace and adjust to a new life. So in this way, we can understand the daughter-in-law, we can understand the mother-in-law a little bit better. So she knows that her son needs time to adjust, that the son needs time to adjust to a new way of life, okay? So, a wise daughter-in-law. What does a wise daughter-in-law do? A wise daughter-in-law. She understands that although she may feel very close to her in-laws. She needs to be respectful to them at all times, and in times of need, to apologize if necessary. Being married into the family, you're now part of the family. When you're brothers, sisters, your own parents, you probably argued, had tension in the past, and you love each other, you forgive each other, you say sorry. Sometimes it may feel like it's so hard to apologize to your in-laws, but remember, this is an important relationship, right? You marry into the family. Many times daughters-in-law, unfortunately, may think, so once you marry me, you're responsible not to be so close to your parents. You need to be cut off. Nowhere in the Torah does it say that. There's an understanding that there is a different relationship now, that the man must now cleave to his wife, but that doesn't mean to cut them off completely. It never says that. We always know that parents need to be honored and respected, in-laws and parents. So that must be really reminded. We must understand that and remind ourselves. Okay, so the wise daughter-in-law understands that the in-laws are only trying to be caring and helpful. They have life experience, and they don't want their son and daughter-in-law making the same mistakes they did. They have life experience. They want to give it over. So she can listen to the advice, right? The wise daughter-in-law listens to the advice and says, "That's interesting. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Thank you for bringing it up. I will think about what you said. Thanks for helping. Thanks for bringing that up to me." So she's not saying she'll do everything, right? She'll do what they say, right? Nobody's holding a gun to her head. But what she's saying is that I accept. But she has to be willing to hear. This is a relationship she wants to cater and foster. Knowing she married into the family, she can accept her new in-laws or spend the rest of her time being married, living in anger, living in resentment, and living in judgment. Okay. Just like I have reinforced in my previous videos, that it takes effort to work on positive relationships. It takes effort, positive thinking, positive relationships, trying to be, productive, positive thoughts. That takes effort, absolutely. But it takes so much more effort to marinate yourself in negativity, to stay in that negativity, to rewind and replay what they did, what they said, judge, and you become a more negative person, unfortunately. And it takes much more energy to be negative than to be positive. So we have to remember that. The wise daughter-in-law also knows not to put her in-laws under a microscope. For some reason, it's so much easier for us to judge our in-laws, whether it's all our in-laws, especially mother-in-law, father-in-law. We put them under a microscope. But if we really think about it, as daughter-in-laws, if we were to look back at memories of our parents, or really just think about our parents, they also have flaws, just like everybody has flaws. Nobody's perfect. But what we want in our hearts is our husbands to accept our parents, right? To accept their flaws and make peace, right? Not mention it to you constantly. So this is really appreciated by her from the husband, for him to make peace and accept her parents. So we have to view in-laws as Jews in need of help, we are also obligated to judge them favorably. In-laws are not a separate category. They need to be also judged favorably, and they're viewed as Jews who need help, who need or who need us. This is someone who we need to connect to and have a positive relationship. They're not just a separate category who we need to, separate and remove from our lives or make a distinction. No, they're also Jews. It helps me personally looking if there's difficult people, then view them as also Jews, especially if they're related to you, who need help, who need your help, who need your connection, your advice, maybe your physical help. So that's what you want to do. So all in all, we need to understand that this also actually hurts the son and the husband. So the son and the husband. The son and the husband, he was a son and now he became a husband. He loves his wife and he loves his mother. It's not the same kind of love, and they'll never take each other's place. It's a different kind of love, and each love is actually very special. So I was just saying a blessing. It is a different kind of love. He loves his wife. If he didn't love his wife, he wouldn't have married her. They are two very important people to him in the whole world, and it makes him so happy for them to get along. On the contrary, when they don't get along, it hurts him in such an unfortunate, devastating way. It's probably the most difficult type of suffering that he experiences emotionally. It's really challenging for him. He has to constantly make peace with them. So what kind of son can truly love his wife who tries to cut him off from his mother? So we don't want to do that as daughters-in-law. Rabbi Zamir Cohen stresses that profusely. The mother, he knows, he will always love and respect. She gave him life. But a wise wife will not try to separate them, but create peace and invest herself to create a positive relationship. Okay, so all in all, mothers-in-laws and daughters-in-laws, we need to have patience for each other to adjust to our new roles, our new phases and stages in life. The way to create a positive relationship is to invest in the relationship. The son and mother invested so much, his entire life, receiving from his mother. Now the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law can give to each other. They can give each other help, compliments, time, effort, gifts, positive phone calls to create that positive relationship and connection. In order to create a positive relationship, we need to give in whichever way possible. So I'm not a mother-in-law yet, but I can give you a tip to, as a daughter-in-law, to call your mother-in-law once a week. Call her once a week just to say hello. Call her before Shabbat to wish her Shabbat Shalom. Ask her how her week was. Ask her for a recipe and ask her for advice. In-laws love to give advice, and when they hear that you're asking for advice, it doesn't mean you'll necessarily follow it, but it means you're thinking about them. You respect them as a daughter-in-law because you're thinking about them. You're thinking that what they went through can be actually helpful, influential, and beneficial to you, and you respect that, even if it's a mistake that they made. So put it on your weekly calendar. Once a week, try to call them at the same time. It's like, part of what you do every week, to call your mother-in-law once a week just to say hello. If it's one person you call once a week, your mother-in-law will always forgive you for not calling, probably more easily, but your mother-in-law, invest your time, your few minutes a week to call just to say hello, just to wish her a great week. Ask her how she's feeling. Ask her for a recipe, ask her for advice, and just that phone call means the world. Even if it's just a few minutes or so, it means just the world to your relationship and your connection. I have a personal story where, I work throughout the year, but my summers are off. I work for the Department of Education. So during the summer, I'm home. I'm not working in the school. So I usually call my mother-in-law at a certain time during the week, all year. But in the summers, for some reason, it's hard for me to remember to call. One time my mother-in-law jokingly said to me, you call me more during the year when you're super busy than during the summer. And I thought to myself, that's because I don't put it on my weekly, now I have to make sure I do it because now it's like a new schedule because it's the summer. And this is something I had to adjust, and thank God I call her every week or so. It's important to do that because we are married into the family as mother-in-laws and daughters-in-laws, creating that positive relationship, investing yourself. You're married into the family will only help foster positivity, good health in the end, good relationships amongst the whole family, even if it's just a mother-in-law trying or just a daughter-in-law trying, it will foster positivity. Appreciating the insights of Rabbi Zamir Cohen in his book, Happily Married, Leah Abramov, Being and Becoming, awakening awareness of your greatness and potential.